guys, it's Hannah, and I am back with part 2 of reading my top favorite books to you in an effort to hook you. The two that I'm going to read today are Jane Eyre and Mudvayne. I'm going to start off with Mudvayne. You guys know my love for Mudvayne. I have a review for it, actually for both of these in the description. So I'm going to spare you with any lengthy synopsis, but just a brief one. So Mudvayne by Tarryn Fisher is about these two people who woke up in this cabin that they're trapped in the middle of nowhere in the snow, and they kind of have to figure out why they're there, but that's not really the point. It's just kind of like the setting in which that the story occurs. The point of it is more internal. That's all I'll say. It's kind of a mystery. Don't want to give too much away. Whereas Jane Eyre is like, it's a classic. It's a love story, but the love interest is so like unlikable in that likable way. I will admit that the first hunk of this thing sucks. It is, what's the word? Like, doesn't have like an active copyright thing on it. So you can find the audiobook on YouTube. Highly recommend it. I had to read it for a Brit Lit class and I hated the first chunk, but then I got hooked and then I just devoured it. But save that for later. I feel like a lot of people already know what Jane Eyre is. So I'm going to talk about this one a little bit more. It's not as loved as it should be. The writing of all of Tarryn's novels, for the most part, especially this one, it's really this one. It really sets the mark that for which I judge other books, but so do my other two that I mentioned. Jane Eyre is older, so I don't hold it to quite the same standard. It's just older language. I wrote a novel. I wrote a novel and it was published. I wrote a novel and it cruised to the New York Times bestseller list. I wrote a novel and I watched it play out in a movie theater with a large, buttery bag of popcorn in my lap. My novel that I wrote. I did it all alone because that's how I like it. And if the rest of the world wants to pay for a peek into my discombobulated mind, so be it. Life is too short to hide your wrongs, so I hide myself instead. It's my 33rd birthday. I wake up in a cold sweat. I'm hot. No, I'm cold. I'm freezing. The blankets tangled over my legs feel unfamiliar. Too smooth. I pull at them, trying to cover myself. My fingers feel thick and picky against the silky material. Maybe they're swollen. I can't tell because my brain is sluggish and my eyes are glued shut and now I'm hot again. Or maybe I'm cold. I stop fighting the blankets, let myself drift backwards. When I wake up, there is a light in the room. I can see through my eyelids. It's very dim, even for a rainy Seattle day. I have floor-to-ceiling windows in my bedroom. I roll in the direction and force my eyes open, only to find myself facing a wall made of logs. There are none of those in my house. I let my eyes travel the length of the room, all the way up to the ceiling before I bolt upright, coming fully awake. I am not in my bedroom. I stare around the room in shock. Whose bedroom? I think back to the night before. No way. I haven't even looked at a man since. There is no way I would have gone home with someone. Besides, last night I had dinner with my editor. We'd had a couple of glasses of wine, but that doesn't make you black out. My breathing is shallow as I try to remember what happened after I left the restaurant. Gas. I'd stopped for gas at the Red Sea service station on Magnolia and Queen Anne. What after that? I can't remember. I look down at the duvet, clutched between my white knuckles. Red. Feather. Unfamiliar. I swing my legs over the side of the bed and the room wobbles and tilts. I feel sick right away. Day after a huge drinking binge sick. Trying to breathe deeply enough to quell my nausea. Chianti doesn't do this, I tell myself again. I'm dreaming. I say aloud, but I'm not. I know that. I stand up and I'm dizzy for a good 10 seconds before I'm able to take my first step. I bend over and vomit, right on the wood floor. My stomach is empty, but it heaves anyway. I lift my hand to wipe my mouth and my arm feels wrong, too heavy. This isn't a hangover. I've been drugged. I stay bent over for several more seconds before I straighten up. I feel like I'm on a tilt-a-whirl at the fair. I stumble forward, take in my surroundings. The room is round. It's freezing. There's a fireplace with no fire and a 4-poster bed. There is no door. Where's the door? Panic kicks in and I turn in a clumsy circle, grabbing onto the bed to steady myself with my legs buckle. Where's the door? I can see my breath steaming into the air. I focus on that. Watch it expand and dissipate. My eyes take a long time to refocus. I'm not sure how long I stand there, except my feet start to ache. I look down at my toes. I can barely feel them. I have to move. Do something. Get out. On the wall in front of me there is a window. I amble forward and rip aside the flimsy curtain. The first thing I notice is that I'm on the second floor. The second thing I notice, oh God, My brain sends a chill down to the rest of my body. A warning. You are done, Senna, it says. Over. Dead. Someone took you. My mouth is too slow to respond, but when it does, I hear my intake of breath fill the dead silence around me. I didn't believe people actually gasped in real life until the moment I heard myself do it. This moment, this gasping, heart-stopping moment, when all that fills my eyes is snow. So much snow. All the snow in the world, piled right below me. I feel like that's enough of a hook that I'm actually going to hit pause there. There is someone else. Sorry, spoiler, not spoiler. You're about to find out in a couple paragraphs. But there is somebody else with her. And that person is an integral part of the story. And now Jane Eyre. Apologies in advance for all the words I will not know how to pronounce. This should be fun. There was no possibility of taking a walk that day. We had been wandering indeed, in the leafless shrubbery for an hour in the morning. But since dinner, Mrs. Reed, when there was no company, dined early. The cold winter wind had brought with it clouds so somber, and a rain so penetrating, that further outdoor exercise was now out of the question. I was glad of it. I never liked long walks, especially on chilly afternoons. Dreadful to me was the coming home in the raw twistlight, with nipped fingers and toes, and a heart saddened by the chidings of Bessie, and humbled by the consciousness of my physical inferiority to Eliza, John, and Georgiana Reed. The said Eliza, John, and Georgiana were now clustered around their mamma in the drawing-room. She lay reclined on the sofa by the fireside, with her drawings about her. For the time, neither quarrelling nor crying, looked perfectly happy. Me, she had dispensed from joining the group, saying she regretted to be under the necessity of keeping me at a distance, but that until she heard from Bessie, she could discover by her own observation that I was endeavoring in good earnest to acquire a more sociable and childlike disposition, a more attractive and springly manner, something lighter, franker, more natural, as it were. She really must exclude me from privileges intended only for contented, happy children. What does Bessie say I have done? I asked. Jane, I don't like cavaliers or questions. Besides, there is something truly forbidding in a child taking up her elders in that manner. Be seated somewhere, and until you can speak pleasantly, remain silent. A small breakfast room adjoining the drawing room. I slipped in there. It contained a bookcase. I soon possessed myself of a volume, taking care that it should be one stored with pictures. I mounted into the window seat, gathering up my feet. I sat cross-legged like a Turk. Having drawn the red moreen curtain nearly close, it was shrined in double retirement. Folds of scarlet drapery shut in my view to the right hand. No, to the left, where the clear panes of glass, protecting but not separating me from a drear November day. At intervals, while turning over the leaves in my book, I studied the aspect of the winter afternoon. Afar it offered a pale blank of mist and cloud, nearly a scene of wet lawn and storm-beat shrub, with ceaseless rain sweeping away wildly before long and lamentable blast. I returned to my book, Berwick's History of British Birds. The letterpress thereof I cared little for, generally speaking, and yet there were certain introductory pages that, child as I was, I could not pass quite as a blank. That's the thing about this book. I'm only a little bit in. The way that the sentences are arranged are so challenging to read. Hence why I highly recommend audiobooks. Please find an audiobook. So Jane grows up in an orphanage. Eventually, she goes to be a governess, which if you don't know what a governess is, it's basically like a live-in teacher for this wealthy family, the Rochesters. What I think this book is especially successful in is the dialogue and arguments. They're just really well done. So does The Bronze Horseman, which, like, holy moly, the best. And I think I just appreciate that more because that's something that I struggle to write. So I'm like, ooh, that was really good. Good job. I'm going to skip forward a bit. Okay? Sweetbriar and southernwood jasmine, pink and rose, have long been yielding their evening sacrifice of incense. This new scent is neither of shrub nor flower. It is, I know it well, it is Mr. Rochester's cigar. I look round and I listen. I see trees laden with ripening fruit. I hear a nightingale warbling in the wood half a mile off. No moving form is visible, no coming step audible, but that perfume increases. I must flee. I make for the wicket, leading to the shrubbery, and I see Mr. Rochester entering. I step aside into the ivy recesses. He will not stay long. He will soon return whence he came, and if I sit, he will never see me. But no, eventide is as pleasant to him as to me, and this antique garden as attractive. And he strolls on, now lifting the gooseberry tree branches to look at the fruit, large as plums, with which they are laden. now taking a ripe cherry from the wall, now stooping towards a knot of flowers, either to inhale their fragrance or to admire the dew beads on their petals. A great moth goes humming by me. It alights on a plant at Mr. Rochester's foot. He sees it and bends to examine it. Now he has his back towards me, thought I, and he is occupied too. Perhaps if I walk softly I can slip away unnoticed. I trod on the edge of the turf that the crackle of the pebbly gravel may not betray me. He was standing among the beds a yard or two distant from where I had to pass. The moth apparently engaged him. I shall get by very well, I meditated as I crossed his shadow thrown long over the garden by the moon, not yet risen high. He said quietly, without turning, "Jane, come look at this fellow." I made no noise. He had not eyes behind. Could his shadow feel? I stared at him, and then I approached him. "Look at his wings," he said. "He reminds me of a West Indian insect. One does not often see so large and gay a night rover in England there. He has flown." The moth roamed away. I was sheepishly retreating also, but Mr. Rochester followed me, and when we reached the wicket, he said, "Turn back. On so lovely a night it is a shame to sit in the house, and surely no one can wish to go to bed while sunset is thus at meeting with moonrise." It's a bit clunky to read aloud, but it's really beautifully written. The language, it's going to trip you up a bit. You're going to get into the feel of it. I highly recommend an audiobook, in complete honesty, at least for like the first solid half. It's good. It's rewarding. I don't know why this used to be such a big favorite of mine. I kind of feel like I need to revisit it before demoting it, if that makes sense. Not to lessen the goodness of it, because it is good. It is a nice classic. I don't read a lot of classics, and I did enjoy that one. So hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you haven't checked out part 1, I will also have that linked down in the description and probably as in like an inside of the video. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.